Welcome to our workshop. In today's workshop, we are going to learn about the various techniques of watercolor and fox calligraphy. Now let us see the materials required. Watercolor paper or sketchbook paper. Brushes, flat, round and a dry brush. A tissue paper, candle or a crayon, normal sketches and pens for calligraphy, masking tape, watercolors and water to paint. Now let us start painting. I've taken a watercolor paper of A4 size and I have divided it into 9 parts using a masking tape. Now let us start with our first technique. I'm going to use a flat brush and I'm taking one solid color to paint the technique. Always hold your brush gently while using watercolors. The composition should always be with less paint and more water so that you get the transparency. Also make sure that you don't damp the paper. Make it even and give a clean wash. Now let us move on to the second technique, that is graded wash. Here I am using pink color again with a flat brush. This is one color from dark to light. Slowly get rid of the color by dipping your brush in the water. Moving on to the third technique, lifting off. Add a background color. I am using blue here. Lift off some paint using tissue. You have to do it quickly before the paint dries. Gently blot the tissue onto the painted surface. This is an easy way to paint clouds. And you can also use tissues where there is more of paint where you don't need. Now moving on to the fourth technique. Firstly, wet the paper with water. Make sure it is nice and wet. Now, using a round brush, add the color while the paper is still wet. This technique is mostly used in watercolor. Drop the paint onto the wet surface and spread gently. Now add the second color. Let the colors bleed and blend. Add more colors if you wish to give them a nice effect. Now moving on to the fifth technique, use a dry and splattered brush. Dip the brush with some paint without water. Now create strokes by moving the brush gently. You can also wet your brush slightly to give a watery effect. This technique can be used while painting grasses. Now moving on to the sixth technique. In this technique, we are going to add 3 layers of transparent washes on top of the other. Paint the first layer and let it dry. Till the first layer gets dried, we'll move on to the seventh technique, that is graded wash with 2 colors from one to another. Start off with one color and slowly dip your brush into another color. Here I am using blue and pink. While moving on to the other color, be very gentle so that it gives a graded effect. Eighth technique, that is candle resist. Use a candle or a crayon to draw your design. This is one of the easiest technique of all. Now, paint over the design. The wax resists the watercolor, leaving the white of the paper exposed. Finishing off with our last technique, that is splatter. Use a stiff brush. Make sure to cover the areas you don't want to splatter on. You can also use a toothbrush. Now moving back to our sixth technique, glazing. Seems like our first layer has got dried. Once it is dried, add the second layer with another color. As I previously said, you can also use tissue paper to remove excess paint. You can also add another color of layer if you wish, but make sure the previous layer is completely dry. Now remove the masking tape slowly. The purpose of using the masking tape is to avoid smudging of the paint and to give the watercolors a clean outline. This is how it looks after removing the tape. Flat wash, graded wash one color, lifting off, glazing, dry brush, wet on wet, graded wash 2 color, candle resist and splatter. Hope you like the video. Now let us learn how to draw fox calligraphy.